Welcome to VLearn Virtual Learning Network. This is session number 9 of Social Problems in India and the topic is labor, that is industrial labor. Topics to be covered are in this session is industry and industrial labor, labor in the organized and unorganized sectors, labor welfare measures in India and the labor unrest. Industry and industrial labors. Features of industrial labors. The term industry is normally associated with the use of machine technology. In industrial societies, production is largely done through machines rather than solely through the physical labor of human beings. Another characteristics of industrial society is the marketing of human labor. This means that labor can be bought and sold. In real terms, we can translate this as people sell their labor and are paid wages in return. These are the organized and the unorganized sectors. The organized sector consists of workers in the larger factories and establishments where workers are employed following laid down procedures and their terms and conditions of work are well defined by the law of the land. These include all services under the government, local bodies, public sector undertakings and factories using power and employing at least 10 workers or those without power and employing at least 20 workers. The unorganized sector consists of casual and contract workers, workers in small industries and the self-employed ventures. Industrial labor in India. The imperialist rulers plundered the natural resources of India to maximize their industrial production. The prolonged colonial administration or intensified exploitation reduced a large section of Indian people to miserable, impoverished mass. Their rule amounted to destruction of self-sufficient village community, traditional village and college industries, displacement of rural artisans and craftsmen and migration of the section of impoverished rural people to the urban areas. In India, the early phase of industrialization started in the 1850s, which coincided with the emergence of industrial working class. Cotton and jute mills and mines gradually flourished in various parts of the country. Between the two world wars, there was a phenomenal increase in the demands of factory products in India. The British government made no serious efforts to foster the growth of capital good industries. It was only after independence that Government of India made conscious and deliberate efforts for industrialization through its successive 5-year plans. Now, labor in the organized and unorganized sectors. In organized sectors, workers who are employed in organized sector enjoy some privileges which make them different from those in the unorganized sector. These workers enjoy permanent employment. Their jobs cannot be terminated by the whims of their employer. Once a worker is permanent and he has certain rights and privileges. The privileges which the workers enjoys are granted to him or her by law and not merely by the goodwill or charity of his or her employer. Protective laws. There are a number of laws governing work in the organized sector. Two of the most important laws in this respect are the Factories Act of 1948 and the Industrial Dispute Act of 1947. The Factories Act in fact defines the organized sector. Any factory coming under the scope of the act has to abide by certain rules governing regulation of working hours, rest, holidays, health, safety, etc. The Industrial Dispute Acts provide protection to the workers in case of disputes arising from his work. There are a number of other acts such as the Minimum Wages Act, Payment of Bonus Act, Provident Fund Act, Employee State Insurance Act, which provide protection and some facilities to the workers. Trade union, apart from getting government protection through these various acts, the workers in the organized sector are able to form trade unions. This is a very important aspect of this sector. Trade unions unite the workers to defend their rights. They ensure that the various legal provisions are implemented, and it would be difficult for workers in the organized sector to secure the rights guaranteed to them if there were not trade unions. The government alone cannot protect the workers. Labor in the organized and unorganized sector. Unorganized sector, there are some problems in this sector which are reflected in the terms of and conditions of employment, work security, etc. of workers. Casual laborers. In many cases, the employers try to cut down their costs by employing casual workers, that is, workers who are not permanently employed but are employed for a limited number of days. In most cases, the government rules prescribing permanent employment state that a worker who has been employed for more than a certain number of days have to be treated as permanent workers. The employers try to dodge this law by breaking the service of the workers for a day and re-employed them again. In this way, the worker is not able to complete the minimum number of days, after which she can become permanent. The existence of casual labor in organized industry ensures that the costs are reduced. These workers are usually granted no rights except for their minimum wages. They have very little security of employment and they can be removed from employment at any time. Contract laborers. There is another category of workers who are in the organized sector but like casual labor are not a part of it. These are the contract laborers. Labor in the organized and unorganized sector. The employers in this case get workers not through direct employment but through labor contractors. Here too the workers is deprived of the advantages of permanent labor even though she may be performing the same type of work as a regular work. Work security of the casual and contract laborers. Casual and contract laborers form a fairly large proportion of the workforce. The employment of these types of workers is not restricted to the private sector alone. In the public sector undertaking too, they are frequently employed. The Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act lays down that such workers can be engaged only in certain type of work. We usually found that even in the public sector, the act is openly violated and contracted workers are made to work in the same manner as the regular workers but get less wages. The common features of the workers in the unorganized sector, whether in small scale sector or as casual and contract labor, are that they enjoy little or no job security, they get low wages, and their working homes and working conditions are largely unregulated. The unorganized sector is also known as the informal sector. The sector can in the many ways be contrasted with the organized sector. The informal sector by implication means a sector which is not guided by rules. The unorganized sector is also known as the informal sector, and the sector can in many ways be contrasted with the organized sector. The informal sector by implication means a sector which is not guided by rules, and the industrial establishments in this sector are small in size and they employ a small number of workers. Low wages to women and child labor. This sector also employs a large number of women and children because they are cheaper. The employment of women in the organized sector has declined. Since the scope for female employment has reduced in the organized sector, women are to depend largely on the unorganized sector for work. Expansion of low paid employment. Because labor is cheap and the investment required is small, The unorganized sector has expanded rapidly and it also offers more scope for employment. The positive contribution of the unorganized sector with regard to employment is that it is able to provide jobs to unskilled workers who would have otherwise been unemployed or in low paid and more exploited conditions as agriculture workers. Now, labor welfare measures in India, responsibility of the state and labor laws. In any form of employment, it is the obligation of the employer to provide decent living and working conditions for their employees. When employers fail to do so, the government steps into the safeguards the interest of the workers by enacting legislations. Labor laws are therefore passed mainly to ensure that the employers fulfill their obligation to their employees. The change in the government's attitude towards labor was mainly because the post-independence government took a positive stand as far as the welfare of the workers were concerned. Merely passing laws is not enough to protect workers. It is more important to ensure that the law are implemented. The employers are, of course, expected to implement the laws, but they do not do in many cases. In such instances, the government is expected to ensure that they are implemented. The government at the central and the state have the labor department, which has labor officers, assistants, labor commissioners, etc., who have been entrusted with the task of ensuring the implementation of the laws. The employer can be prosecuted in the court of law if he or she is found violating the laws. Regulation of works and social security in organized sector. We can divide these legislations into two groups, one dealing with the regulation of work and the other dealing with social security. In the first group, we can place the acts such as Factories Act, Industrial Dispute Act, Minimum Wages Act, Shops and Establishment Acts, Workmen's Compensation Act, Contract Labor Regulations and Equal Remuneration Act, and so on. Acts such as Payment of Bonus Act, Employees Provident Fund Act, Employees Family Pension Scheme, Employees State Insurance Act, Payment of Gratuity Act, and other falls in the second category. For example, the Employees State Insurance Act provides for medical facilities to the workers and is based on the nominal contribution made by the employer and the employee. The Payment of Guarantee Act ensures that workers get an amount of money on retirement. The pension schemes and Provident Fund Act are designed to help the workers financially on their retirement. Labor welfare and women workers in the organized sector. These are various acts which seeks to regulate and protect women workers in the industry. The Factories Act lays down that women cannot be employed in the night shift. The Mines Act also prevents employers from making women work underground. In the case of children, the Factories Act lays down that those below the age of 14 cannot be employed in factories. Moreover, above 14 who are employed can be given work for more than 4.5 hours a day. Pregnant women are to be given 4 months of maternity leave with full pay for the leave period. Labor welfare in unorganized sector. There are a few acts which cover the workers in this sector. In most cases, since the industrial units do not come under the preview of the Factories Act, the working conditions mostly remain unregulated. Workers also do not get facilities like Provident Fund, gratuity, medical facilities, compensation, or in most cases paid leave. Even the acts providing for some regulation in their work are not implemented, and the biggest drawback that the workers face is that they rarely have trade unions. Now, labor unrest. Trade union. In normal cases, the workers are able to put forth their demands through their trade unions to the management. These demands are discussed by the two parties and the management may accept some of the demands. Trade union help to channelize the grievances of the workers in an institutional manner, and the management also benefits because it becomes aware of the workers' problem through the trade union. In the absence of trade union, the management may not be aware of what these problems are. Forms of labor unrest. Labor unrest can take different forms. The only weapon the workers have in combating the might of the employer is withdrawal from work. Similarly, for the employer, the most effective weapon is lockout or suspension of the workers. Unrest is usually centered around these means. When negotiations between the workers and the employers fail or are restrained, initially the workers may express their dissatisfaction by holding dharnas. These actions are directed towards demonstrating their solidarity, and it is expected that the management will take note of this. Usually, if this does not have the necessary effect on the management, workers find ways to withdraw their labor. Now, there are some questions on the basis of this session. First, explain the main cause for the failure of implement law in unorganized sector. Second is name the two major groups of laws protecting workers. That's it for this session. Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.